All right. So with that, we're going to go into players to watch and X factors. So I think we'll just do both of them for each team, and we're going to rattle them off real quick. Little sentence or two to justify what we were doing. We have the same list for this, so we're both just going to kind of give our little take on it. Start off with Canada. Our player to watch is Dylan Cousins. Go.
Dylan Cousins, obviously first-round pick of the Buffalo Sabres. He's likely going to be centering that top line with Kirby Dach on his wing. And I think just between the two of those guys, we're going to see some serious magic happen here. I don't want to directly compare it to, say, Jesse Puljujärvi and Patrick Laine from Finland in 2016, but I think we're going to see something similar with those two this year. They're really going to feed off each other. They're good friends outside of hockey as well, and they've got that natural chemistry going. And I think Cousins being in that top-line center role, I mean, if we're both right with our prediction and Canada takes home gold, he's going to be a big part of it.
The kid from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. Yeah, I love him. Yeah. He's probably going to be – he has just as big of a chance of winning the MVP as Kirby Dach does. Mm-hmm. I think the only reason I picked Kirby Dach was because Dach has the NHL experience under his belt. But, yeah, Dylan Cousins is going to be just as critical to Canada's success, and I think he'll step up to the plate. X Factor, Quinton Byfield. Here we go, baby.
Quinton Byfield. I'll let you take this one to start because you've got he's going to be repping the Kings someday. So
Quinton Byfield is a returning player to Team Canada this year. Last year he was kind of faded into the woodwork a little bit. I don't think he got any points in the tournament. They didn't really use him much, but he was an undrafted prospect going into his draft year playing on Team Canada, which is a very big thing for a young guy, right? It's like Canada doesn't have any players like that on their team this year. So Quinton Byfield, I think, could really step up to the plate. He's got the experience from the World Juniors. He's still one of their younger guys, but I think he could step up and really make a big difference. I think he would be a great option as their second line center and on the penalty kill as well. He's a very good 200-foot player. I'm really excited to watch him play personally as a Kings fan because he's going to be kind of like our successor to Anze Kopitar. But yeah, Quinton Byfield for Team Canada, I think he could be the X factor because if he can really step up to the plate, that gives them two extremely prominent forward lines that they can run with.
Yeah, and Quinton Byfield last year as well. Last year's tournament, he almost kind of got caught in Alexis Lafreniere's shadow in the sense, those two are always neck and neck going right up to the draft. I mean, obviously, the general consensus was that Lafreniere was going to go first overall, but Quinton Byfield was always being thrown into the same conversation. And while Lafreniere was lighting it up, Quinton Byfield I'm pretty sure he was being used as a 13th forward. He really didn't get that much ice time. So this year, he's going to have that much more responsibility and he's going to have that much more trust from his coaches. And I think he's going to thrive.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to Finland. Player to watch. The youngster, Brad Lambert. The least Finnish name I have ever heard in my life. Yeah. Name another Finnish guy named Brad. Can't do it.
Does not exist.
But go ahead. What do you think of Brad Lambert?
Well, I just want to say that it's pretty surprising to see Brad Lambert at the tournament and not Shane Wright. I know Canada typically doesn't, like you said, it's kind of rare to see Canadian players that make the team and get regular playing time when they're not drafted. But at the same time, Wright is pretty much being touted as like in the ballpark of the next McDavid. Maybe not quite as good as McDavid, so it's a little surprising to see Brad Lambert there. But
Shane Wright is 2 years out on his draft year. He's not going to. His draft year isn't until 2022, which would make him the first guy since McDavid to be on the team as a 17-year-old. Yeah. So that would be a huge thing. But I agree. I think they could have made a spot for Shane Wright. But I think Finland just doesn't have as deep of a roster.
Either way. Yeah, exactly. Finland doesn't quite have as much depth as Canada does. And I think, he's going to be a little bit shadowed by the guys, Finland's top guns, guys like Anton Lundell and Roby Jarventie, guys like that. But I think if you have him in a role like, say, second line, third line center, I think he's definitely going to do enough to turn some heads. And he's going to contribute. Might not be their top contributor, but he's definitely going to be a guy to watch because, again, 16 years old.
Yeah, I think he's there. I think they'll try to kind of shelter him and they're just kind of trying to build him up as give him some experience for next year. He's going to be probably a hugely pivotal player for the Finns going forward next year and the year after. He could have a couple more years in the World Juniors, opportunities to really take the reins for the team. So I think this is kind of just like a little bit of a growth year for him. But yeah, they'll probably try him on the third line. Maybe if he does well, move him up to the second. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
X factor for Finland is Anton Lundell. This guy was drafted 12th overall by Florida this year. Anton Lundell is now going into his third World Junior Championship. So he is a vet of this tournament. He knows how it's done, and he knows how to win. He's their captain. I don't know if there's much else to say. What do you think?
Anton Lundell, all I'm going to say is that whatever offense Finland generates, he is going to be on the score sheet for every single goal. He is absolutely lighting it up in Finland's top league this year. And again, I think he's only 19 years. Yeah, he's only 19 years old. He's got 12 goals in 17 games for IIHF of the SM Liga League this year. He's over a point per game player. And at 19 years old, that's something that you don't really take lightly. And he's going to be getting the most ice time. I think he's by far Finland's best forward. And yeah, to put it lightly, to put it bluntly, I guess, not lightly, he's been making all other Finnish teams his bitch in the SM Liga, and I think he's pretty much going to
definitely
continue that trend at the World Juniors when he's playing against guys his age and not grown men.
One of the best young players the Finns have pumped out in a while. So, yeah. We're moving on to the Swiss now. All right, so their player to watch that we have put down here is Simon Knock. He went undrafted this past year, a little bit surprisingly. I thought he was kind of like projected to go like kind of maybe a mid-round pick, but he went undrafted. But he's playing in Switzerland's top league right now, and for Davos in the National League. He's got 2 goals, 2 assists in 11 games. He's doing all right, and I think he might be Switzerland's top forward this year.
He would, yeah. I would say for sure he's Switzerland's top forward this year. I mean, he was named their captain for a reason. He's only 18 years old, but that kind of goes to show, at 18 years old, the coaches have a lot of trust in him. They obviously think that he is a leader that kind of leads by example. And yeah, it's like I said earlier, Switzerland really doesn't have too many returning forwards this year. I think they only have 5, and I think out of those 5, only 2 of them are name-worthy, and Knock is one of them.
Yeah, so this is partly why I think Switzerland is not kind of like tickling my noggin this year, because, like Simon Knock, an undrafted forward, is their best player. Like, they've had years in the past when they've had, like, Nico Hischier, and I know that was a really good year, but, like, this is a really weak year for Switzerland.
Yeah.
Their X factor is also an upcoming draft prospect for 2021, Lorenzio Cananiccia. I think that's how you say it.
He probably did it better than I ever could. I don't know.
So he's in the system of the Shawinigan Cataracts in the QMJHL, but right now he's playing for Lugano. Lugano's under 20 team in the Swiss U20 league. I've seen that he's like a mid-round projected pick. I don't think there's like and this is a really good opportunity, I think, in this tournament for him to kind of like become noticed by scouts and maybe raise his draft stock a little bit. But he isn't a blue chipper by any means.
No, he's not a blue chipper, but he's very young. He's only 17 years old, and because like we've been saying, because the Swiss have so few returning players, it's not like he's going to be buried behind a bunch of grizzled vets who have been there year in and year out, right? Like he's going to be. I think Switzerland, they have nothing to lose at this tournament. They just got to thrust as much skill as possible. Mm-hmm. And Cananica, I don't even know if I pronounce that right, but either way, I think he's going to be one of their better offensive players. And I think a strong tournament from him could dictate how the Swiss do and maybe have them prove me wrong and finish ahead of the Slovakians.
Yep. Speaking of Slovakia, we're talking about them next. This is a team that annually disappoints me. Slovakia has not put out like a nice prospect in so long, it feels like. And every single year since their year where they surprised and won bronze in 2015, they just have been on the brink of relegation every single year. Mm-hmm. And I think this year is no different. Maxim Kajkovic is their player to watch for us. He was drafted 89th overall by Tampa Bay. He's, I think, far and away probably their best player on the team. But even then, he's like a decent offensive player in the OHL at best. Mm-hmm. And what do you think?
Honestly, you pretty much tackled any point that I would have had. He's a decent player. Nothing really jaw dropping in the OHL. Like you said, the Slovakians have just been disappointing for the past couple of years. I'm surprised they didn't try and clone Dennis Godla after 2015.
I know, eh?
That seems to be their only chance at making any sort of noise in these tournaments. But
they have to ride a hot goalie. They have to. That's the only way they can ever do it. Which is why I wanted to mention Samuel Halavai, their goalie in this tournament. He's also playing in the OHL, and he was quite impressive in his year. I think he could very easily be the X factor for them as well, other than the guy we're about to mention as well. But I think, like, again, with Slovakia, they rely so heavily on a hot goalie that's like with Dennis Godla, that's the only way that they've ever been able to actually like make some noise in this tournament. Yeah. But the X factor we have for Slovakia is Simon Nemec. He's a 16-year-old player in this tournament. One of the youngest guys in the tournament. He's a 2022 draft prospect. It's always exciting to see young guys like this in the tournament, to see what they can do. And like you already know that Slovakia is just trying to prime him to be their best player in a couple tournaments.
And you know what? Like, I know we've kind of been beating this drum the entire time, but the Slovakians naming like 3 16-year-old players, let alone even one 16-year-old player, let alone 3, is completely unheard of. Because the Slovakians don't tend to go with the most skilled team every year. They just like to pick the players who have the most experience and ones that they're comfortable with. But they stepped out of their comfort zone this year. And Nemec is one of those. He's a perfect example of that. He's got 4 points in 13 games in Slovakia's top pro league this year, which is, I mean, he's a 16-year-old defenseman. Like, what else can you ask for at that point? And I think for purposes like this, I think Slovakia and Switzerland being the first game on Christmas Day this year at noon, like most other years, you'd look at that, you'd kind of shrug and be like, okay, that's kind of a weird game to start out with. But truth be told, I think both of those teams are going to be like, well, fuck, we've got nothing to lose. Like we both of us, like, it's going to come down to either of us to finish fourth in Pool A.
That game is going to determine who goes to the quarterfinals.
It's going to be exciting, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to Germany here. This is a team that they're tickling my balls this year. Let me tell you, this is a really exciting team, and they could crap out and finish where Germany usually finishes. But man, do I think that they could maybe sneak out a win or two, especially in the weaker pool that they're in. I think Germany could really go on a little Cinderella run here. This is probably the best team they've had ever, I think, and that includes the Leon Draisaitl years, because of the depth they have and the amount of top end prospects they have on this team. So our player to watch, if anyone knows anything about international hockey, you know who I'm going to say. Tim Stützle, 3rd overall pick to just this past draft to the Ottawa Senators. And man, have the Ottawa Senators had a lot to cry about these past few years, but this is not one of them. Tim Stützle is a very exciting prospect, and for Germany, he is going to be everything for them this tournament.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think one thing that kind of comes to mind when I think about Stützle at this year's tournament, it's almost like it reminds me of what maybe we could have seen from the 2015 World Juniors had the Edmonton Oilers let Draisaitl go to the World Juniors. Because I don't know if you remember that year, he was in the World Juniors the year before, and then in his debut NHL season, the Oilers didn't let him go to the World Juniors. They made him stay with the Oilers, and then
they cut him
no
after.
more than a month later, he was back in the WHL with the Kelowna Rockets. So who knows what Draisaitl could have done at that tournament that year had the Oilers not been idiots and let him go. But I think with Stützle at this year's tournament, we're going to get a glimpse of what maybe we could have seen from Draisaitl that year. He's an incredible player, and he's going to be the heartbeat of that team, the heart and soul of the Germans. He's going to be their he's their guy. Plain and simple. Best German prospect since Draisaitl, and the second best by a large margin, I think, ever. Yeah.
Another guy that's another huge prospect for Germany is our X factor, Moritz Seider. Wow. Best defense prospect that Germany's ever put out. 6th overall to Detroit the year before. As I said, like, Germany is just teeming with top prospects this year compared to other years, not compared to like Canada, but compared to other years. Germany's got a very formidable lineup. And Moritz Seider being on the defense, he's going to be running the power play. He's going to be running the offense is going to be running through him. He's going to be the most important player, I think, to the German teams in terms of their success and actually being able to win games as that number one defenseman, which is why I have him as the X factor. If he can play the way he has in the AHL and the way he projects to in the NHL one day, I think Germany could actually go quite far. And I think Moritz Seider could be one of the top defensemen in this tournament.
100%.
If Germany goes far and upsets some teams, I think Moritz Seider is a genuine candidate for top defenseman in the tournament.
And I think what makes him the X factor over Tim Stützle is that if Stützle craps out, or if which obviously I don't think is going to happen, but if he craps out or if he gets injured, the Germans still have some good names up front. They've got John-Jason Peterka. They've got Lukas Reichel. If Moritz Seider goes down, who do they have on defense?
Exactly.
He is the backbone of that defensive core. And I just want to go out on the record and say, and obviously this is you too, because I know that you were super high on him as well. What an incredible pick by the Red Wings at 6.
Amazing.
I remember when the Leafs had their like late first round pick that year before they traded it just to get rid of fucking Patrick Marleau. I wanted them to take Moritz Seider because I remember he was being projected late first round, and then he kind of started sliding up towards the middle of the first round in the rankings. And then on draft night, the Red Wings drafted him, and immediately I was like, that's a home run pick right there.
And what else would you expect from the Detroit Red Wings front office, really? Like
exactly.
They are always picking guys like that maybe seem a little off the board at the time, but a year or two later, they're one of the steals of the draft. Even at six, I think Moritz Seider was a steal in this draft.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that might have been Stevie Yzerman's first pick as Red Wings GM too.
I think it was. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So that just makes it all the more special.
Let's move on to Russia here. Russia's player to watch, Vasily Podkolzin. Vancouver Canucks fans will be loving this. 10th overall by Vancouver in 2019. He's played parts of 3 seasons now in the KHL, so he's got a lot of experience against men. Vasily Podkolzin, also a very strong contender for top forward or MVP of the tournament if Russia can really go far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think top forward and MVP and all these awards definitely end up on who goes far, and it's the World Juniors, so anything can happen. And Podkolzin strikes me sort of as the Kirby Doc for the Russians because he's got all that experience. He's played parts of 3 seasons, like you said, in Russia's top pro league. And he's got that advantage against some guys in the tournament that maybe only have experience against junior players, guys around their age. So I think he's definitely going to be Russia's best offensive player this year, best player in general. And yeah, he's definitely the guy to watch for Russia.
Yeah. So the next one we have for Russia is the X Factor. This is a really interesting one because this is the one that in the draft this year had everyone scratching their heads. Nobody knew who this guy was. And I know you were really excited to talk about him too. Yegor Chainikov, the Columbus Blue Jackets 21st overall pick this year. I think he was like projected to go like 6th round, and like some people didn't even know who he was. And they took him in the first round with their first round pick. What do you think of this?
Well, so saying that the Jackets had people scratching their heads is a little bit of an understatement because I remember watching the NHL draft this year, and after every single pick, they always go to the panel and they get the thoughts, and they've always got this research prepped up, and they've got a whole bunch of scripts ready, stats to drop, stuff to say about the guy.
The panel's shifting through their notes. They don't know what they're.
When the Jackets drafted Chainikov, I remember the camera panned to Brian Burke, and he actually said, "I have no idea who this guy is." Yeah. And no one did. Like they drafted him, and I was like, this guy's projected like 4th, 5th round or something. I did some reading up on him, but
even Sam Cosentino, they're junior expert guy, their draft expert. No idea. He was like shifting through his notes, like Yegor Chainikov. I wasn't planning on even having to talk about this guy because they just went so off the board. Like it's not like they went for a guy that was projected 2nd round. Like this was a guy coming out of Russia that nobody really knew about. So yeah, I think if he can, this is his opportunity to really make a name for himself and show why the Columbus Blue Jackets picked him where they did, because clearly Columbus knows something that we don't about this Yegor Chainikov guy. But if he can really come out and be a difference maker for Russia, then I think Jarmo Kekalainen is going to be looking like a genius.
Looking at his KHL stats right here, he's got 15 points in 27 games for Avangard Omsk so far this year. And for a first-round pick, he is a year older than most of his draft class, but at the same time, it definitely goes to show that Jarmo Kekalainen knew something that other GMs didn't. And that's why They wasted no time. They didn't want to just wait until the 6th round and hope that he would still be available. They wanted him right off the bat. He was their guy, and I think at this tournament we're going to find out exactly why.
Yep. All right, we're going to move a little bit quicker through those because we had a lot to say about Chinikov. But for Sweden, our player to watch is Alexander Holtz. This is a very dynamic offensive player. He could lead the tournament in goals easily. 7th overall by New Jersey this past year. I think Alexander Holtz could very easily be one of the most exciting players in this tournament to watch. And New Jersey Devils fans, if you're out there, I'm sure you'll be loving it watching this guy.
One of the most dynamic players in the entire tournament for sure. And the way that we say Kirby Dach will get MVP if Canada wins gold, or Vasily Podkolzin will get MVP if Russia wins gold. If Sweden somehow manages to win gold, it'll be Holtz getting MVP for sure.
Holtz or Lucas Raymond as well. I think
Lucas Raymond is there too. That's kind of like Sweden's version of Cousins and Dach.
Yeah, that's their 1-2 punch for sure. Yeah. X Factor, I was close to putting Lucas Raymond for this one, but I think that he's going to be a little bit less important than this guy to Sweden's success. I think Philip Broberg is Sweden's X Factor, 8th overall pick by the Edmonton Oilers in 2019. Philip Broberg, again, as we keep saying, the awards entirely depend on the success of the team, but Philip Broberg will very likely be Sweden's best defenseman, potentially their most important player. And if they can go far in this tournament, Philip Broberg will be a large reason as to why. Great two-way defenseman, great skater. There's not much else to say about him.
No, yeah, exactly. And Sweden's a team that's, at least over the past couple of years, have been known notoriously for being built heavy from the back end out. Strong defense, strong goaltending, and Broberg's a big part of that. I think he's by far the best defenseman that they have. Maybe not by far, but he's definitely the best defenseman that they have. Yeah. And a good tournament from him could be the dictator on how they do.
Yep. USA, player to watch. We're going back to my boys right here. Arthur Kaliev. I kind of was biased in picking this one, but I really do think that much like Alexander Holtz, Arthur Kaliev could be a really fun player to watch in this tournament. The guy just like shits goals. Like he just can't stop scoring. Yeah. I mean, the guy just puts up 50 like it's nothing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and he's such a dynamic and exciting offensive player. If you watch him play in the OHL, you know, he's always lighting up the score sheet. And I think the U.S. are really going to love watching this guy snipe off the wing. Cause you know, he's just one of those guys that's just so exciting to watch. And every time he touches the puck, something exciting happens.
You know what? It's been well over a year since the 2019 draft, but I'm still in disbelief that the Kings scooped him in the 2nd round.
Second round pick.
I had Arthur Kaliev going 15th overall, I'm pretty sure, in that draft.
I think some people maybe were like, people were worried about attitude issues or something. I don't know, but yeah, he fell hard in that draft, and I think the Kings got one of the most talented players in the draft.
They did.
In the 2nd round.
They did. Yeah.
So absolutely. That's my boy Arthur Kaliev, born in
2019, he had 51 goals, 51 assists in 67 games. Like that's not 2nd round talent right there.
Born in Uzbekistan.
Fuck. You know you love your nations.
Had to mention that. All right, X Factor for the U.S. Spencer Knight, very, very easily could be the best goalie in this draft as well. I think Spencer Knight and Yaroslav Askarov are the 2 best goaltending prospects we've seen in a very long time. And I think Spencer Knight, if the U.S. can pull it off, I think Spencer Knight will be the reason why. And that's why I have him as the X Factor, because the U.S. their success in this tournament entirely depends on the abilities of Spencer Knight to push them all the way to the top. Because as I mentioned, I think goaltending in this tournament is always the most important in this sport is always the most important in terms of ability to win games. The only exception I would make to that rule in this tournament is Canada. I think Canada has a strong enough core to overcome their average goaltending that they have going into this tournament. But I think the U.S. is going to need Spencer Knight to be that guy in order to get on the podium. Yeah,
and if Askarov didn't exist, then this entire tournament would be the Spencer Knight show. Because
exactly, he would be the top goalie on everyone's list.
He's the Jack Eichel to Yaroslav Askarov's McDavid, pretty much.
He is.
And one thing I want to mention real quick before we move on, a low-key X factor, in my opinion, for the USA could be Cam York, defenseman. And I only use him as an example because one thing I noticed when I was looking at their roster, the States have one of the smallest teams in the tournament. And especially when you look at when you compare them to teams like Russia and Sweden who are built on size and skill, the States really don't have a lot of that. And I think they felt intimidated by that because when you look at their defense, they really didn't go for much offense from the back end. And Cam York is really the only name on that defensive core that strikes me as the puck-moving offensive defenseman. And I think I think he's going to have to pump out some serious offense if the States want to make any actual noise at the tournament.
Right on. All right, so the Czech Republic, player to watch. This is, again, a bit of an underwhelming team this year for the Czech Republic. Jan Mysak, 48th overall pick to Montreal, another Montreal player we're talking about. He's just their best forward, and he's a decent player. He's not anything overwhelming. It's not going to be he's not going to change the tournament for the Czechs. The Czechs aren't going to medal. What do you think?
You pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I really don't know what else I can say that wouldn't pretty much just be directly parroting you. But yeah, I mean, the Czechs, they're not going to medal this year. I mean, unless they shock the world and they pull a Slovakia in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, Mysak, he's their guy to watch for sure because he's definitely their best offensive player. And if the Czechs score goals, he's gonna be the guy in the mix.
X factor for them is the Czechs' top prospect going into this year's draft, Stanislav Svozil. He's projected to go late first round. He looks like he could be a decent player. It's always fun to watch the draft prospects because, they don't have a team yet and they're like working hard to this is their best opportunity to really grow their draft stock. So I think it'll be fun to watch him and he'll be motivated because of that, which makes him the X factor. But I really don't, I don't really see any other X factors that could really change the outcome of the Czech Republic just kind of succeeding in the quarterfinals in this tournament. I think that's about probably what's going to happen.
I don't have any differing thoughts here, so we can keep moving.
All right, and the last team we're going to talk about, last two player to watch and X factor for Team Austria, the new team in the tournament. I actually do like Austria's team this year, and they're almost guaranteed to not win a game and finish last in the tournament. But this is also, as I was saying with Germany, this is probably the best junior team that Austria has put forth, maybe ever, or at least since the Thomas Vanek or Michael Grabner teams. Marco Rossi is definitely the player to watch on this team. He's their only player to watch on this team. 9th overall pick by the Minnesota Wild. He is a dynamic player, and I think he was a steal for the Wild at 9. So,
man,
Rossi could be the best player in this tournament, and I will say that right now. When is the last time you saw the worst team in the tournament have a player that could end up being the best team in the tournament? I can't remember the last time I've seen that.
No, honestly. And I'm so glad you said that about the Wild because I was just going to say the Marco Rossi pick was one of my favorites in the entire first round that year. I think the Wild, especially in the position that they're in, they've got an aging core, and obviously they're not having fun with that Zach Parise contract and the Ryan Suter contract and all that. And I think their team just became really boring to watch over the few years. And I think Marco Rossi is the spark that's going to get them out of that funk. Mm-hmm. And truthfully, the Austrians got bent over and fucked hard this year at the World Juniors because they have by far the hardest pool.
Oh my God. It's brutal.
And you know what? The truth is Marco Rossi is going to give fans a reason to want to watch Austria. And I think if he does so much as score a goal and help them win a game, Austria, the country of Austria, is going to go nuts. They will be cheering in the streets, and they will treat it like a gold medal win.
If Austria had either Slovakia or Switzerland in their pool, I would have projected them to win the game, just for fun. Yeah. Just for fun, because I like their team, and Marco Rossi, I think Marco Rossi is far and away better than any player on Switzerland or Slovakia, hands down. Yeah. So Marco Rossi, if Austria wins a game, let's say they beat the Czechs and get to the quarterfinals, I bet you Marco Rossi is going to get some votes for top forward or MVP.
Oh, he will.
I think. Yeah. Honestly, Marco Rossi could be the best player Austria's seen since Thomas Vanek, and I think he is.
Absolutely, I think.
Sorry, their X factor is Timo Nickel. The guy also was drafted this past draft to the Anaheim Ducks at 104th overall. Austria actually had 3 players, along with Benjamin Baumgartner as well. 3 players drafted in this past draft. That's the first time since 2006, I believe, when Michael Grabner was drafted. That was the first time any Austrian players have been drafted since 2006, and they had 3 this past year. So Austria, you know what? They're my underdog that could like maybe give a team a scare. You know, I'm like maybe they lose to the Czechs like 3-1, and like the Czechs scored an empty netter, so it was 2-1 going into the third. You know, that's.
Can I just stop you for a second? Did you say they have a guy named Benjamin Baumgartner?
Yeah.
That's right up there with Brad Lambert, of a name you would not expect to hear out of a European country.
Yeah, you're right. Benjamin. Yeah.
Benjamin Baumgartner. Wow.
So those are our players to watch in X Factors. Once again, just to recap my projected podium for this tournament, we got Canada winning gold, baby. U.S. winning silver. I think that'll be a good game. And that'll all come down to how Spencer Knight plays. I think who comes out on top of that tournament. But I think Canada just has one of the deepest teams we've seen, maybe since the 2005 team. And bronze medal, Russia. You want to go over yours one more time, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, we both agree on Canada finishing gold. I've got Russia getting the silver medal. Jeez. I think Skarov, he's going to be not the sole reason, but he's going to be one of the main reasons in helping him get there. I think the only team that's going to be able to solve him is Canada. And in the bronze medal game, USA versus Sweden, I think the States they have the edge over Sweden. I think Sweden's a little too banged up from COVID, and I think they lost a couple key players because of that. And at the same time, I think their offense is a little bit underwhelming. So I think I think USA is going to finish third.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Alex, and thanks for everyone for tuning in to the first hockey episode of Pump Take Sports, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely.